Good morning, Snapchat. Today I'm going to talk about corporate governance. What that means is how decisions are actually made at startups. It's not something people think about, but they probably should. And it's pretty fitting because I'm about to get into an Uber and I'm heading over to Snapchat's offices for a meeting with them, but can't tell you anything we discuss. The first thing you need to know about governance is there's actually 3 levels of governance: management, board, and shareholders. Most people think about the board because that seems where most decisions get taken, and actually most decisions don't get taken by the board. Boards usually weigh in on the annual budget, they weigh in on executive staffs, and they weigh in on some key decisions of the company, which I'll describe now. Boards weigh in on whether you're going to buy a company, whether you're going to sell your company, whether you're going to fundraise, whether you're going to have a material change to your business operations like a RIF. And even though, as I've told you on past Snapchats, almost nothing actually gets voted on boards, legally speaking, boards can vote and majority wins. That's why most boards have an odd number of members, because if you have 4 board members, 2 to 2, you can end up with split decisions. The majority of a decision in a company, like how you price, how you sell, most hiring and firing, never needs to go to the board level. One of the biggest things that most startup people don't understand, though, is even though boards seem like they make the decision, often shareholders make decisions. They do this through legal documents, and they have terms in them called protective provisions that protect the right of preferred shareholders. And most people think about these VC provisions as being hostile. They're not hostile. I want to explain to you why they exist. The things in protective provisions stop people from raising debt, from increasing option pool, from raising more capital, and there's reasons to protect these things. If you didn't have protective provisions, as a shareholder, management teams could simply dilute your stake by raising at $1 and giving 99% of a company away. I know that's an extreme example, but trust me, many legal entities have found ways to defraud shareholders. And so these are just basic legal protections. Now, sometimes these legal protections are used in hostile ways. I don't want to suggest they're not, but they do exist for a reason. So I want to give you an example. Let's say you want to sell your company. The first thing you need to do is get board approval. If the board doesn't approve, you can't sell the company, and no shareholder can force that. But even if you vote at a board to sell a company, shareholders sitting above the board can still have a say through their legal protections. So if you raise $2 million at an 8 pre and investors own 20% of your company, and you want to turn around and sell it 5 months later for $5 million, obviously investors want to protect themselves from that happening, because basically you could line yourself with millions of dollars and destroy shareholder value. So this kind of brings up the question of, why do boards actually exist? Boards are meant to be representatives of the shareholders. As a founder, as management, or as an angel investor, you may be a shareholder, so too are VCs or seed investors. But the US outlook on companies is that the board serves as the representative of the shareholders and of shareholder value. The UK has a unique structure in that usually the role of chairman and CEO are separate people. I think this is much better corporate governance than the US system. The chairman manages the board and the CEO manages the company. But what should a board represent? There's philosophical differences that exist country by country. I want to tell you about Germany. Many German companies actually have 2 boards, and they view a mixed purpose. The board should represent both the shareholders and the employees, because the German system doesn't view companies as solely existing for shareholders, but a balance between labor and capital. And while at times this can feel frustrating to people who don't exist in that system, having worked a lot in Germany, I actually see some benefits to having dual representation. I mean, at the end of the day, shouldn't a company also serve its employees? Shouldn't employees have some level of protection against people just taking the assets of a company? But perhaps the most important thing, if you're a founder or management, to understand is soft power versus hard power. Hard power are legal rights. That's the thing that boards have the legal right to do, or shareholders have the legal right to do. That's hard power. Soft power is when you get your way without legal rights, and there are important times to use this and important times not to. As a general rule, boards and shareholders don't like to overrule management unless something's extreme, and I'm going to explain why. Boards know and shareholders know that it's not in their best interest to try and make the day-to-day decisions that they're not best equipped to do in your company. And good boards know that if they overrule management too often, that management will get frustrated and they may find themselves with a company with no management. I always think it's best to use soft power when you've accomplished a lot. When you've accomplished something, you earn the right to go ask. The kinds of things you may ask for increases in budget, increases in option pool. You may ask to acquire a company. Soft power is a subtle form of both people wanting to offer you carrots for good performance and the stick of knowing that they don't want to demotivate you. In extreme cases, I've encouraged founders to use the power of the keys, handing the key back to your investors. I'll explain. I've seen situations where founders have gotten so diluted and board of directors are really trying to control the management too much. And my advice is you only have your youth and your energy, and let's call your youth until 60 so I don't seem ageist. But there does become a time at some companies where maybe the best option for you as an individual is actually to leave. So metaphorically, there are times where you go to investors and say, listen, if this is the result you really want, let me help you find a new team to execute your vision. Of course, you want to use this very last resort, very carefully, with a smile on your face, and with the true intention to help transition. And I only use this explanation just as an example. You have more power than you think you have, this soft power. I once had a friend at a startup. He was a founder and he was embarrassed to ask for a pay increase, which he hadn't had for years. He had 2 kids. I encouraged him to go to the board and ask for a modest pay increase, to explain why he needed it. It was for personal reasons, and to explain why this would keep him focused on the job at hand. He was shocked at how quickly he got the approval done. I mean, boards want to cautiously enable you to do what you need to do. And as a management team, remember, never ask a board to weigh in on an issue that you don't need their advice on and that they are not supposed to be weighing in on. Once you ask, you'll get their opinions and then they're involved. So if it's things that you think are under your sphere of influence, just make the hard decisions as a management team. But of course, ask for help if you really need it. Boards can be valuable and they bring a lot of experience to help you make better decisions.